Hi, Tammy. Hope you're well.
Hey Sid, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's lovely to see you after a week. So yeah. So how's
A week
everything?
break. Yeah, all going good. Yeah, it's my final few days in South Africa and trying to just get everything together and all the loose ends and stuff for the last minute stuff. But yeah, mixed feelings as well, but going good.
Awesome. As usual, it's always great to have you on, especially on another interesting topic, learning to let go. So to get the ball rolling with you, Tammy, why do so many people struggle to let go of relationships, situations, or identities that no longer serve them?
From my point of view, and speaking from my experience as well, you hold on to familiarity, things
Hmm.
that you identify with. Not only like when you're growing up, you become so familiar with a partner, you become comfortable. It gives you a sense of hope, like sometimes false hope. It gives you a sense of security, knowing like almost knowing like this is home, this is my comfort zone. And even when a relationship or a situation it no longer serves you, it still can feel safer than facing the uncertainty or what lies ahead, what's beyond. So people grieve not just what was, but also what could have been. Like in my relationship or my previous relationship, it's like, what could have been, holding on for, can this change, hoping for a better future, and, for a future that you imagine would become better. So letting go might require redefining who you are and accepting that a chapter has ended. It's almost like growing up from where
Hmm.
you are and moving on to the next chapter of your life. So the challenge isn't really of letting go. It's usually about the past itself. It's about making peace, changing, trusting, and growth can come with what comes next.
Awesome. How can someone tell the difference between fighting for something and holding on to it out of fear or attachment?
S- I would say a helpful question is, am I moving towards this from love and purpose or fear and loss? Because love and purpose, fear and loss, two different sides. So fighting for something usually involves growth, mutual effort, and realistic understanding of the situation at hand. You committed, but you also you're able to accept whatever unfolds, whatever the outcome is. So holding on to something out of fear or attachment often means like resisting reality, basically, ignoring repeated signs that there's something isn't working, or just staying because you're afraid of being alone. Or I know a lot of females that I come into contact with, and a lot of people that I'm actually coaching, they have this fear of, I'm too old now, nobody's gonna who's gonna marry me, or who am I going to find? And it generally happens ladies in their late 30s, early 40s. And so they got this fear of starting over, fear of losing a part of the identity. But in simple terms, I would say fighting for something is investing in its potential. Holding on to something out of fear is refusing to accept what has become. So assess the situation as a third party. And one thing I always tell my clients is do a do and don't checklist. When I leave, if I don't leave, it's up to you. And you need to make that decision. And I always say, when you make that decision, the ladies, put on your big girl panties and deal with it. The boys, put on your big boy shorts and deal with the situation. Because once you make that decision, once you make that choice, stick with it.
But is it easier to say that it's more of a mind over matter thing again? Because I know I do use that question from time to time.
Yes, yes. I would say, I would say not mind over matter, mind over intellect. It's,
Okay.
the intellect drives the mind. So if
Wow.
you making an intellectual decision and you have thought this out thoroughly, I would then say it's yes, it's definitely you working from a place of intellect where you have sussed out the whole situation. You know what to expect, you know the pros and cons. Look, there's no situation that I would say that is the same.
Mm,
Like, it's like giving birth. You can read up about tens of books and on how to parenting, giving birth, and but there's no two families that are the same, no two births that are the same. And I mean, I'm talking from myself. I'm giving the birth example. Two children, one was normal birth, one was C-section. So two same sort of events and all that, but everything happens very differently. So you cannot, it's not like a cookie cutter method where everything's cut out to be the same. So each
mm.
person, as you say, mind over matter, I would say mind over intellect. So if you've got a strong enough intellect to make that choice and stick with it, you go for it.
Awesome. What emotional or subconscious patterns often keep people stuck in the past?
So it could be a couple of things. One definitely is unresolved grief. It's like not
Oh.
fully uh, processing a death or a divorce, or like I know some of my clients, they just cannot fathom that my husband left me for another woman, or my wife was found in bed with somebody else. They just cannot fathom because they think that they're the world's greatest man or wife. So unresolved grief, not dealing with the situation, is a big thing. Another one I would say is guilt or regret, I would say. Replaying mistakes and wishing things had happened differently, and keep someone emotionally attached to the past, like stay in a marriage because of the children, or almost like threatening, I would say. Also, the other thing is fear of change. So the past, even if it's painful, you feel more predictable in that uncomfortable environment than changing, and you're fearing of the uncertain future. Another one is attachment to identity. I know there's one of my clients that because she's married to a doctor, it's the doctor title that she's holding on to. And she's got a horrible, horrible sequence of events that happens every day, but she's still in that pity party because she's
Mhm.
clinging on to that role or that title or that label. And but she's living such an unhealthy life. um, I know, like, social media also lends a big hand to these kind of things where you're living a false life, like in one of our previous episodes, where the influence of social media and how it influences you, looking at somebody's perfect life on camera and you wishing that you would have the same life. The other thing is, I would say, idolizing the past, remembering only the good moments. And it makes it hard to accept reality that whatever is in troubled waters at the moment to change. And a big thing I would say as well is low self-worth. If you've got low self-worth, low esteem, I know a few of the ladies that
Mm.
I've been counseling, they don't have a job, they don't have an income for themselves, and it's like, how do I move on? How do I find my own identity? So often it keeps people stuck, and it's but the meaning they've attached to the emotion remains unresolved. That's what I would say.
All right, I'll get to this two comments here. This is from Reshton. Hi, Tammy. No matter how intense the relationship is, If it costs you your peace and emotional stress, I say release and let go. And the next one is suppressing emotions and pain is self-destructive. All right, your thoughts.
Yes, Wish, absolutely. You are 110% right. A lot of people, they suppress their emotions, they suppress what they're going through. And especially I found this in the Hindu culture, where it's you're afraid of what the community would say, especially when you come from the smaller communities. You're afraid of relatives, where you in a close knit community, you're afraid of what how others would look at you, how what people would say. So yes, that's a very strong point that you made there. And people forget about that, forget so most people forget what happiness is like. So often, people, when last have you ever gone to a movie by yourself? Have you gone for dinner? So many people have not lived outside their marriage, or outside their parental home, to know what it's like on the outside, to know how to live. How do I live my life for me, not for anybody else, not for my partner, not for my parents? How do I live my life for me? And that's a huge thing. It's like, you would said you might resonate with this, where especially where you have an only son, and you expect the world out of this boy, and you're too afraid to let your parents down. So I've counseled a one boy who or one gentleman who was in his late 40s, and he was in love with a different culture girl. And she was single, he was single. They just continued with the relationship because the parents refused for him to get married, being the only son. They refused to him to get married out of their culture, or their religion, I would say. So it's a I would say it's societal norms, it's parental pressure. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah. Only thing I would say is that I'm one of two sons, except I would say not to be. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
good. You're
but
good. Dad. You're good.
yeah. Although the only thing that's kind of similar to what you said, I am one of the two good ones. Let's put it that way, not to sound conceited.
No, no, definitely not.
Yeah. How can letting go become an act of self-love rather than a feeling of loss or failure?
So letting go becomes an act of self-love when you recognize your worth is not dependent on holding on to a person, a situation, or a version of yourself that no longer supports your well-being, your self-confidence, who you are. And instead of seeing it as failure, you begin to see it as choosing peace over struggle, growth over stagnation, and I would say more self-respect over self-sacrifice, rather. So meaning to accept reality as, rather than exhausting yourself trying to hold on, for something to be different. And that's a clear definition of insanity. Doing the same thing, holding on and holding on, thinking things will
Yeah,
change. That's insanity. It's like, get up,
true.
smell the roses, smell the coffee, move on, dust yourself off. So loss focuses on what is ending. Self love focuses on what is being protected and created. Sometimes letting go is as simply as saying, I deserve a future that aligns with
Hmm.
who I am becoming, not just who I used to be.
So I guess it comes down to it as a person self needs to respect themselves more instead of just being stuck in that self-pity loop, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I strongly believe that. So you need to assess yourself, and take assessment of your life, of who you are, and not living somebody else's dream, somebody else's wants and needs. You need to know who I am, what do I want, what makes me happy, and you move from
True.
there.
What practical steps can someone take to begin healing and moving forward after a painful ending or major life transition?
Oh, there's a few things
Mhm.
that I have worked on myself. So I would say major life transitions happen less about getting over it and more about learning and moving through it. So, one of the books that I have read during my divorce was The Seven Spiritual Laws by Deepak Chopra. And
Okay.
you look at a situation and you can wallow in it. I know of so many ladies that I've counseled that when you see them after a divorce, it's like, they're in sweatpants, their hair's disheveled, no makeup, they're not worried about themselves, they just let themselves go. So, you need to understand who are you. So as I said, the book helped me to transmute and transcend, to get out of this, and to write my own story and to put it out there, to actually teach others that yes, there is life after divorce, there's life after breakup, there's life after a major incident like death or loss or whatever it is. Allow yourself, some practical tips I would say is allow yourself to grieve. A lot of people are become numb with the situation, and I have seen it especially during COVID, where a husband and wife, they have been together forever, right? And the wife never knew bank accounts, never knew pin codes, never knew how to recharge a cell phone, how to pay a bill, because the husband did everything. Come
Wow.
COVID, husband falls flat, the wife is stunned, doesn't know what to do. And I promise you,
I can
if
imagine.
you think that you are protecting your wife or you're protecting your spouse by not showing them what to do, you are doing such a disservice to them. Because when you are not
Mm,
there,
I agree.
how are they going to
Yeah.
manage without you? I've seen it with in parental homes where children, like single parent home, parent fell flat, children don't know what to do. My situation, I live abroad, my son is here in the house, and at first everybody, a few of the naysayers of the relatives used to say, oh, you're leaving him in his crucial time of studying, how could you do that, blah blah blah. When I came back here after a year, this child knew how to run the house, he knew the dog groomers, he knew the
Wow.
gardeners, he knew maintenance service providers, he knew everything, and he had such a well-oiled machine. If you think you are doing a good service by holding on and doing everything for your wife,
Mm,
for your children, you are not doing a good thing. Something that I used to do as well with my kids, and I strongly recommend anybody with teenage children, or you can start earlier as well, is to do role
mm,
reversals. One
mm.
weekend a month, you say, okay, you guys are the parents this week or this weekend. You all decide the only time, and I used to do it very often, almost on a monthly basis.
Wow.
The only time I would step in is if the kids needed to be driven somewhere. That's the only time. They would do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, see to everything. If it was the gardener, the helper, whoever it was, they would see to everything. So they knew what would happen, what they would need to do. And a lot of children in this day and age, a lot of children, I see it so often, where they think that they don't even know where the money is coming from. They're just swiping. They're just tapping on their phones. They don't realize the
Mm.
effort that goes into this. And especially with
Yeah.
the more affluent parents, they're just
Mm.
loading that child's bank account. They don't even realize where that money is coming from. They don't know the work ethic behind it. Make your child work. Give your child that opportunity to know, to go and work. Okay, you can weed the garden. And some children have never even touched soil in their bare hands. Go and weed the garden. I will give you however much money. Go and wash the car. I will let them work, know what the work ethic is about. A lot of children these days are so spoiled. They don't know this. Coming back to some tips and pointers, Create healthy routines for yourself, regular sleep, exercise, nutritional meals, and almost have like a daily here I'm going to say something contradicting. Have a daily structure as well as a non-daily structure. Like you would have, okay, Monday to Friday you're going to work in this direction. Change the route, do something different.
Okay.
You have you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you have breakfast, you do whatever. Change the routine, do a little bit of different routine for yourself. See how things work out. I know when I was doing the research for my book as well. We think, oh, why am I going through this? Trust me, even the celebrities go through this. And I know, like Angelina Jolie, she has this thing where she doesn't hit her kids. And she used to do scream therapy, where she used to fill a bucket of water or a dish of water and she used to scream into it. And that was her way of releasing and to get that anxiety out of her. And I know when I was going through my toxic time, I used to gym almost like sometimes 4 hours a day. I used to do
Wow.
boxing, I used to do swimming, I did Pilates, I did a structured class where it forces you to get into the class. Those sort of things would help you to move out of that pity party that you're going through. Also, I would say reflect on the lessons, give gratitude even if you are hating on your partner. Say, so often you meet your partner in your teens, and your partner teaches you to drive, your partner teaches you to stand up for yourself. Look at those as gratitudes. I'm grateful my partner taught me how to drive. I'm grateful my partner taught me how to stand up for myself. Those kind of things. So you focus on the lessons learned, what good can come out of it. I'm very strong on gratitudes, and give gratitudes every day. Also, reconnect with yourself. Invest time in your hobbies, in your goals, in your relationships, things that interest you. I find a lot of people compromise on their interests, their hobbies. And some of my clients, in once they go through the divorce, then the husband's going for dancing lessons and the wife is going for art classes. They call it sip and paint or something, where she's joining a group of ladies where they with a glass of wine and they're painting. Why can't you do that together? Why can't you create some interest in the marriage, create some, if you know your relationship, it does get to a point in time where your relationship just becomes a living situation. Get to do something interesting, maybe do something fun. Instead of going out for a fancy sit down romantic moonlight a candlelit dinner, why don't you just go and buy a fast food snack, sit on the edge of the beach or in a picnic spot, do something different, something that's so welcoming. I know one of the ladies that I was coaching, and she says, "Oh, she's in the UK, and she says it rains here nonstop." I said, "That doesn't stop you." I told her to have a picnic in her lounge, and she says, "Oh wow, I didn't think about that." And instead of having that beautiful romantic dress up, yes, that is nice as well, but you can do things within your means. You can do things in your home. Do things to shift the norm, to create that jerk, that jolt out of the same routine stuff. And I would say if you are going through anything that is emotionally draining, there's so many people out there. There's self-help, there's the internet. Don't be like this hermit and say, oh, I don't know. Seek support, talk with friends, family members, because your mental health is so important. If you've got kids that are going through remember, you may be going through a divorce, a separation, or whatever. Remember, your kids are going through it as well. Get help for them, get support. There's play therapy, there's so much that you can get for them. Go and seek it out for yourself. And remember, especially when you are, this is a big thing, when you are going through something like this, don't jump to say you want to get there. It takes small baby steps. And I always say, you got to crawl, you got to learn to walk, you got to learn to run before you learn to sprint. Go in those steps and just go through the motions. Yes, especially, I think this is something that we should do as well for our next topic is also maybe filtering on this is the relationships and moving on, and also the sexual life that it's an open topic, the sexual life that you go through. I speak very openly to my clients, and so often it's they're in a 15-year marriage, 18-year marriage, 20-year marriage, and then they come to the end. They've had one partner all their lives, and then they find somebody else. How soon
Mm.
is soon? It differs to each person. And when you come out of that marriage, one person, and you find another sexual partner, and I've seen this 9 out of 10 times where the person would say, "Oh my God, I never knew the sex was so good." You get those kind of things. You need to look outside. You need to break down the barriers. I don't say look, think out of the box. I don't own a box. I don't tell anybody to own a box. So I would say break down those barriers. You creating those barriers for yourself. Look outside of those things. If you want to save your marriage, why not try these kind of things? Why not go the extra mile? Do something different. And when you are separated, when you decide to separate or to divorce or whatever it is, you make that choice, stick with it. Don't say, how do I get my old life back? How do I get my old partner back? I mean, I do the tarot, I do spells, and so many people come to me and say, give me a spell to get my ex back. And I say, sweetheart, it's called an ex for a reason. It's an ex. Leave it in the past, move on. And so often, especially where the female has now got the children, and the ex has moved on, the husband's moved on, and they're feeling like, oh, I'm in this house now, I'm seeing to the children, how can I move on? He's having a good life. There's babysitters, there's ways and means around things. Don't wallow in that to say, oh, why me? Why am I going through this? You make a change. You need to make a next meaningful chapter in your life. And that question of who am I? What's my next move? Is your door to your growth.
Awesome. All right, there's another comment here. This is from Jitin Rishika. Kids these days blackmail their parents to make them feel guilty for not meeting their demands.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I've got a client of mine currently with a 13-year-old daughter, and she's doing exactly that. So they're in the process of divorcing, and she's actually at the rebellious stage. I would have actually thought that, 16, 17-year-olds would do that. But yes, at her tender age of 12, 13, she's manipulating the mum, and the dad is actually feeding her information, and trying to, and you're actually ruining this child.
Mm.
So strongly, a lot of people say, oh, but my medical aid doesn't cover it. Let me tell you, I have been through it. I know medical aid will cover 6 sessions, but there's other ways of doing it. There's churches that offer this, there's people that offer this as a charity. If you are a counselor, if you're a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, a hypnotherapist, no matter what it is, people do offer these voluntary sessions where you can get around things if you do enough research. If you find out, there's so many groups that you can join to get that self-help. And yes, children, I would say, children definitely need to go through the counseling. Even let the schools know, if the because it shows up in the child's academia. It shows up with their results, where the children just wallow in the adult situation, and they want to now take on their the adult role and try and help the parents. Children should be children. Tell them what's going on, but tell them, I am dealing with this. Do not let the children get involved, or do not be nasty to use the child to play one parent against the other.
Mm.
That's a
Uh,
definite no no.
yeah. Lastly, how does creating space by letting go open the door for new opportunities, growth, and inner peace?
So I would say letting go creates space because our emotional energy, attention, and our time is very limited.
Mm.
When when those things consume what no longer serves us, there's less room for new experiences, relationships, and other possibilities. So by releasing what we can't change, we free ourselves to focus on what we can build, what we can create, or the next chapter of our lives. New opportunities often become more visible when we excuse me, when we're no longer fixated on what we lost. I know some people will just go on and on and on telling the same story. You go up to a barbecue and you're telling that person and that person, and by the end of the evening you probably told 50 people the same story. You need to release and you need to let go. Yes, that happened, move on. Don't become fixated on the loss. Growth happens when we adapt, we learn, we discover our strengths and what we have known to be possessed by, that toxic relationship, that unhealthy boundaries. Letting go also fosters inner peace, inner calm, because it reduces that constant tension that we're living in, that constant tension between reality and what we wish things were. So acceptance doesn't mean approving what happened. It means no longer fighting for something that no longer serves your higher purpose. So, in that acceptance, people often find clarity, they find resilience, they find a renewed hope, a renewed sense of purpose. Sometimes a very act of releasing an old chapter is what makes room for a new one to begin. So often it's like what feels like an ending becomes a space where there's healing, growth, new beginnings to basically take place. And one thing I would strongly recommend from my personal experience: journal. Journal. It's very cathartic to put down your thoughts onto paper. I'm not saying use your phone. Actually journal with the pen and paper. That actually spurred me to write my book about the divorce. How to transmute and transcend, how to get out of that. Yes, you made a decision, you've got 2 children, you've got 3 children, 4 children, whatever it is. You need to know how to move from that to get to the next chapter of your life. And trust me, when you're pouring out all that emotion, that grief, whatever it is, into that book, when you look at it, even if it's 5 years later, you look, oh my God, you tap yourself on the shoulder. I've really done it. I've come a long way. I've made that decision. And you make your decision and you're sticking to your decision. So it's a brilliant thing to actually write down and go back and, compare notes.
Thank you so much for your time, Tammy, and I'll catch you for the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Love and light to all the viewers and the listeners.